Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. And today we're going to get into just some final thoughts on the Will Smith saga that's still pounding around in the news cycle. Then we're going to go over some recent announcements that they completed mapping the human genome. We're going to talk about what that means. And we're going to talk about their observations and their statements that they're making about this. Then we're going to get into a mass scrooting that happened in Sacramento over the weekend. Something like 6 people died and like 10 were injured. So we're going to just briefly go over that, see if there's anything in there worth looking at. And finally, we're going to talk about a new wave of VidCo-19 that they're now warning about. Now, before we get into these headlines, if you didn't see the community post that I put up over the weekend, Tom Griffin won't be modding anymore on the channel because he has to go back to work and support his family. Now, I spoke to Tom a few days before that, but had no idea that he was going to announce his departure on April Fool's Day. He and I didn't talk about that, but I guess he had made his decision. I think it confused some people that I didn't address all this publicly on April Fool's Day. It's because I didn't know that he was going to do that. I was presenting here on the channel and I didn't know what was going on in the chat because I can't see the chat while I'm presenting. But if you are curious about this and want some details about everything and a few other items, go ahead and look up the community post on this channel. And of course, Tom will be missed. I have 7 Grains who occasionally comes into the channel as a new moderator. And we've flown without a moderator for years. So I'm not too concerned that we won't have a moderator every single show. So let's get into some of these headlines because the human genome, they've been working on this since the 80s, and they're now claiming that they've finished mapping the entire genome. Now, most of this discussion in this USA Today article centers around them talking about how the last 8% of the human genome mapping was difficult, and this is why it took them so long. I think it's interesting that it was the last 8%, but now they're saying that they have the technology and that they've now finished the entire thing. Now, lots of people have been following this project for many, many years because the people on the science side believe that this will prove evolution. And of course, the people on the Christian side, which is where we are, believe it will prove creation. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that we were created, and I don't believe in evolution. I do believe that there are certain base species that, over the course of hundreds of years or thousands of years can start to have different features, but they are still the same basic form. Okay, that's what the Bible teaches, and that's what my reality tells me when I look out into nature and see and observe what's going on. So regardless of what these people come up with in terms of their scientific analysis of the human genome and where we came from, I'm going to stick to my guns because I know we were created from Adam and Eve and that all of creation was created during the 7 days of creation. Now, here's the shocking thing about this announcement. They are now calling this the Book of Life. Earlier maps, he said, were missing entire chapters of the Book of Life. Now, this, of course, is blasphemy because the Book of Life, as we all know, is for the righteous who walk through this earth, make right choices, believe in their Savior, Jesus Christ. That is what the Book of Life is for. It isn't mapping the human genome. And how dare these bunch of evolutionists use a biblical term to describe their discovery of God's miracle in his creation without even giving him the credit. This is the kind of stuff that angers God because it leads people down a path of non-belief, and then the devil has his way in their lives, and this is what happens. This is why it's so important. This is why God cares about true worship. It's not because he's sitting there going, you need to get on your knees and worship me. It's because if you do not understand who the Most High is, you will be led down a path of serving the devil. It's just the way it goes. Now, this phase in the discovery of how we were made, or what they're claiming they found, brings us to an interesting time in history, doesn't it? It's right now being disclosed at precisely the exact same time that the new mRNA technology is being used in smack scenes and drugs, isn't it? Do you think that was an accident that this finished up right at the time that they're starting to use these kinds of technologies? Of course that was no accident. It's like they were preparing us for this new phase of medicine, a genetic phase, which the Bible suggests will be the final phase, in which humans are changed from being human. Now, of course, we'll be following these developments very closely in the coming months and maybe years, if we're around that long, to see what these people are up to, because this is all about gradualism, isn't it? In other words, they will slowly bring these things online, won't they? Now, let's keep going here, because there's even more. Because they're already announcing another wave. Just as things in the UK crane starting to die down and starting to come to some kind of resolution, here we go with another spam-demic drama. Now, my question is how do they know for a fact that this is coming? Look at the headline here, New York Times, a new wave of VidCo-19 is coming. It is coming. Here's how to prepare. Now, of course, this will scare a lot of people into running in and getting a smack scene. Look at the 33 right here as they roll back in Walmart, rolling us back. Here's the Pop-Tarts, okay? Got some Frosted Flakes. This is all of us. We're just dusted with, their potions, just like the Pop-Tarts and the Frosted Flakes. I mean, this thing is so loaded, it's not even funny. So, the new variant is called BA2, and I guess we'll have to see what this is all about once it gets here. Now, here's what I can tell you. This whole losing your smell thing and taste is real, and it's something I've never experienced before with any other cold or flu in my life. So something is happening with the nerves inside of our skulls, isn't it? The intracranial nerves, the taste, the smell, and hearing. All of these things being affected by either VidCo or the smack scene. Now, those of you that have been on this channel for many years, remember that we were already focusing very heavily on these very intracranial nerves. The Body Code series. Remember, we mapped the 12 pairs of intracranial nerves. They're the nerves that come out of your brain and tell the rest of your body the experience of this life. Smell, taste, sight. And God had revealed biblical metaphors to us about the olfactory nerves, which are for smelling, didn't he? And these are positioned in the skull in such a way that visually appear to show Christ being anointed with the burial perfume. Here's the olfactory nerve right here. It's a bulb, and it comes down and around the rear of the brain, the spinal column. And here's this image that we had put together in 2017 on the Enterthestars Facebook page of Jesus appearing to receive the anointing perfume for burial. The olfactory nerve, as you can see right here, seems to be the drippings of that oil falling in and around his head as he's laying down. Matthew 26:6. A woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining on the table. Now, how do we make such metaphors? They make themselves, don't they? Because the word is written on the flesh. The entire story of the Bible, before it ever happened, is written on our flesh, because he is the Alpha and the Omega, is he not? He knew the beginning from the end. And that's how we know who the Most High is. Because who else created us but the God that knew the beginning from the end? Olfactory nerves are for smelling. Perfumes smell. Now, if we keep examining this image of the anatomy of the brain, we also see that here where Jesus is laying, we see this body right here, the cerebellum, which is called the tree of life in the brain. And it appears as the stone, the large stone, being rolled away from the tomb. Now, around the same time, we were also examining the ears, the inner ear, and the nerves of the ear, weren't we? Deep inside the brain. You got to ask yourself, how is it that we were deeply examining these biblical meanings of the very nerves that are now being under attack by the enemy? Well, we all know the answer to that, don't we? Now, I don't know the specifics as to why smell and sound and taste are affected by VidCo or the smack scenes, but it's not good. Now, here's what science says about this, and you can take this with a grain of salt if you want. This is an article out of Nature, and it says, why do people with VidCo lose their sensitivity to smells? Talks about taste in here as well. And science says it's about special neurons in the nose. More specifically, a group of cells called sustentacular cells. I think I'm saying that right. As you can see here. In other words, we've all been exposed to some kind of neurological damage. More specifically, the fact that these cells have been altered suggests that the blood-brain barrier has been broken, and they talk about this in the Nature article. There's a contradiction in here, because they're like, these kinds of viruses aren't supposed to break the blood-brain barrier, but yet the olfactory bulb, which is in, past the blood-brain barrier, is being affected. And now you know what the thieves in the temple are really trying to do. This is the temple, and the thieves are trying to get in any way they can. Steal, kill, and destroy. Now, let's read a little bit about this, about smells and VidCo 19. Although the mechanisms are not fully understood, there is an emerging consensus that smell loss occurs with the VidCo when it infects cells that support neurons in the nose. Now, this is huge. Neuropathic damage. And, this goes all the way back to so many things that we've talked about in terms of, where all this is headed. When you think about neuropathic damage, you think about rabies, you think about shingles, you think about all these other things that seem to be closely related to VidCo and the smack scenes. How is this all going to end? Rabies being the zombie virus. Let's keep reading here. When researchers first identified the smell loss as a symptom of VidCo, they were worried that the virus was infecting the odor sensing neurons in the nose that send signals to the olfactory bulb in the brain, and that the virus could therefore access the brain. However, postmortem studies of people who had VidCo have shown that the virus rarely reaches the brain. A team led by Sandeep a neurobiologist at Harvard, has instead found that cells that transport sensory neurons in the nose, known as sustentacular cells, are probably what the virus is infarcting. Data and his colleague zeroed in on the sustentacular cells because VIDCO attacks by targeting receptor called an ACE2 on the surfaces of cells, and sustentacular cells have many such receptors. Olfactory sensory neurons do not. That suggests that the VIDCO infects the support cells, leaving the neurons vulnerable and deprived of nutrients. But there may be other ways in which VIDCO induces smell loss. Now, if you've experienced any kind of loss of smell or taste, please chime in the comments so everybody can see that this is a very real phenomenon. Research team in Italy showed that smell and taste loss occurred at the same time as an increase in blood levels of the inflammation signaling molecule called interleukin-6. Now, of course, we know that this is the inflammation molecule, isn't it? A lot of talk about interleukin-6. A lot of talk about that related to zombies as well, and rabies. Postmortem study published last December showed clear signs of inflammations, such as leaky blood vessels in the olfactory bulbs of people who had VIDCO-19. So, as you can see, there's a contradiction here, because they tried to say that VIDCO only affected the sustentacular, but then they found leaky blood vessels in the olfactory bulbs, which is in the brain past the blood-brain barrier. So now we have a brain component, just like with rabies, affecting a person's brain, making them go insane out of their minds. And this could be the very beginning of something much, much larger. Now, I'm not telling you these things to scare you. I'm telling you these things so that you understand what could be coming, so you can prepare spiritually. Because the Bible has all kinds of things to say about people walking around trying to die, but not able to die. They will seek death and not find it. They will call out for the rocks to be falling on their head to kill them. This sounds like a zombie apocalypse to me, and we need to be prepared for this. Although scientists have some understanding of the mechanisms involved in smell, they have little idea about how the VIDCO affects taste and chemothesis. Nobody has a good handle on that yet that I know of, says John Hayes, a food scientist at Pennsylvania State University, who studies the VIDCO effects on chemical senses. Taste and chemothesis are senses that are distinct from smell, even though all three combine to tell humans what flavor a food or beverage has. Taste relies mainly on taste receptors on the tongue, whereas chemothesis relies on ion channels on sensory nerves, among other mechanisms. So what I believe is this loss of taste and smell is a precursor to something much larger that is coming. Now, I'll link this to in the pinned comment, of course, like I always do. I put all the links in the pinned comment for people that want to go more closely over these things. But something is on the horizon. Now, there's something else. There's another aspect of this human genome mapping project that I thought was interesting. Let's go back to that article. I thought this was worth interesting. They get it down in here and they talk about replicating of the DNA. Replicating or cloning. What am I talking about? Well, these are repeated sequences. Repeated sequences. Now, this is weird because murder hornets, as you can see on your screen right now, have 30 to 40% of their DNA is made up of repeats. But butterflies have almost no repeats. Now, the implications of this are chilling, because you got to ask yourself, what's this all about? Are they suggesting here that, more malevolent and aggressive animals across the board, are their genes repeating more than the benevolent animals that are peaceful? Now, the story doesn't say that, but it would be interesting to find out which species on this planet have high amounts of repeating sequences or cloned sequences within their DNA. And wouldn't that be interesting? Because one of two things would be the case. It could either suggest that there was some tampering done in the genome. Could have gone back to the fallen angels and the flood and the corrupted flesh that God talks about in the book of Genesis. The flesh was corrupted and he needed a pure Noah to continue on with a pure set of animals in the ark. Maybe that's what this was all about. You could also make the case that this could be representing the sin that entered the world, corrupting and infecting the natural realm. So, I'll put this in the link as well in the comments there. Let me make sure you guys are with me, and we'll keep going because I want to get into this mass scrooting that happened in Sacramento. Now, I was born in Sacramento, grew up there most of my life, or half of my life at least. I know many of you have chimed in that you are also from Sacramento as well, or from that area. Some of you are getting some buffering, it looks like, so I'm glad I'm checking in with you guys. It's been kind of a normal thing for us to have buffering. I don't know what's going on. I haven't really changed any settings, so apologies for that, but hang in there, you guys. Is anyone else getting buffering? Let's take a look here before we get into this mass scrooting. All right. Thanks for the thumbs up, everybody. It's important to, thumbs up the videos and the live shows because, one, it shares it to all your social media outlets so people can know that we're live. And also, it helps with the algorithms to get the word out so that other people can see. Okay, thanks, Redeemed by Y'all. Appreciate it. So, most of you guys are good. So, let's keep going with this. Let's find this mass scrooting. So, 6 dead, 10 injured. Sacramento mass scrooting. Police in California are searching for at least one suspect in connection with a mass scrooting early Sunday in downtown Sacramento. Claimed 6 lives and less 10 other people injured. They were patrolling the area around 2 a.m. when they heard pop sticks popping off. When they arrived at the scene, they found a large crowd gathered on the street and 6 people dead. Another 10 either took themselves or were transported to hospitals. No information was given on their condition. Authorities don't know whether one or more suspects were involved and were asking for public's help in identifying those who were responsible. They don't have any specifics on the kind of pop stick that was used, and they said it was a very complex and complicated scene. Oh, brother, here we go. Shortly after the scrooting, video was posted on Twitter that showed people running through the street amid the sound of rapid pop sticks popping off. Video showed multiple ambulances. Residents were asked to avoid the area, which is packed with restaurants and bars that leads to the Golden One Center, where the Sacramento Kings play basketball. I wonder if this was in old Sacramento. Oh my gosh. The first thing I saw was like victims. I saw a young girl with a whole bunch of blood in her body. Girl taking off glass from her. A young girl screaming, saying, "They killed my sister." Mother running up, "Where's my son?" Kay Harris said she was asleep when one of her family members called to say her brother had been killed. I always tell you guys, nothing good happens after dark. I stay out of the dark because for some reason, these are the kinds of times where you have a much higher and increased chance of something like this happening. Now, you can say what you want about that, but God made the sun rise and set for a reason. And even going back to antiquity in the natural world, people didn't hang out and cruise around at night. This is when people get DUIs. This is when people are around people that are drinking and you can get hit from someone. And the list goes on and on. I try to stay out of the dark. Now, some of you have to be in the dark. I understand. This is not a criticism. This is just some, useful advice from my experience. Now, I wanted to follow up on this whole story with Will Smith and give you some final thoughts. I know I told you that the last show that we did on this was pretty much we weren't going to do anymore, but as you guys know, the news cycle will not let go of this, which means that it has spiritual significance on the rest of us. You can call it a distraction, and it probably is, but as you know, we are focused on covering everything on this channel. We're not just focused on this one story. So this is weird because, as you probably heard, Denzel Washington chimed in about Will being possessed by the devil. I thought this was interesting because Denzel starred in a particular film in 1998 that was all about demons hopping around in bodies. In fact, even before all this happened, several of you were telling me and reminding me about this film. And I think it's interesting that now something bizarre has manifested out of all this with respects to Denzel Washington's comments about Will Smith and exactly what's going on in this. Now, why did you guys message me in the comment section about this film, Fallen? Well, because in the film, demons start mocking Denzel Washington by singing this song by the Rolling Stones called Time Is on My Side. And why were the demons singing this song as they were hopping from body to body, mocking Denzel Washington in the film? Well, of course, this is a reference to demons being immortal in this timeline until Jesus returns. In other words, they simply keep jumping from host body to host body. We know all this is true because we've read about it in the New Testament at length. The demons that Christ cast into the pigs probably were saying the same thing to him. They were saying, "You cannot destroy us because it is not yet the appointed time." Do you remember this? So, God revealed something to me yesterday that confirmed that Denzel Washington was speaking about the demon inside of Will Smith. Are you ready? Watch this. Now, this is brand new information. Here's the song by the Rolling Stones. Now, if this song had been made other times by other people before this, but this is the most popular rendition. Time Is on My Side. Here's the song right here. Now, I want you to look at the release date. September 25th. Now, I want you to look at Will Smith's birthday. September 25th. Wow. So, I Google searched September 25th because I was like, what is this all about? Why does Will Smith's birthday match the very song that Denzel Washington was referring to in this film, Fallen? How can this happen? So I Google searched September 25th, demon possession. Look what appeared. This is a new emerging occult date. Because it seems as though over and over again in news history, they like to report on stories of possession on September 25th. Here's a story from September 25th, 2000. Speak of the Devil. Here's another one from September 25th, 2013. A Modern Exorcism by the Atlantic. The first one was the Baltimore Sun. Here's another one. Trial in Woman's Blinding offers chilling glimpse of hoodoo. September 25th, 1994. It keeps going. Evil affects souls like a plague. New York Times, September 25th, 2014. Emma's Exorcism, September 25th, 2019. The American Conservative. Now, if any of you have any more clues to the secret of this date, September 25th, please let us know in the chat or in the comment section, because I couldn't find this date other than the research that I just did in terms of it being some kind of significance to the occult. Weird times, you guys. Now, as we begin to wind down the show here, I came across a bizarre article here in the Cincinnati.com Inquirer. And this is just weird. They put all the blame on Jada. Letters. Will Smith's devil is the woman sitting beside him. March 31st, 2022. This letter is a response to the recent incident involving actor Will Smith and Chris Rock at the Academy Awards show Sunday. Smith mentioned that at your highest point in life, the devil finds you. It is my thought that the devil is the woman sitting right next to him. Can you believe this? I think that they're probably referring to the green dress. Well, let's keep reading here. Jada Pinkett lured him away from his wife and his family in the beginning, and then did everything within her power to keep him, including allowing him to cheat. In my layman opinion, the entire marriage is based on her and her pesky ego full of unfilled dreams. Now she has a hot topic to discuss on her Red Table talk show, while Will's career sits in turmoil, unsure of his next move. She was basically a bit actor who never made her mark in Hollywood, and as a result continues to manipulate and deceive his accomplishments for her gain. This is a sad commentary on an actor who had finally made his mark and has so much to give. Let's hope it's not too late to restore. Patricia Patton Avondale. During the Cincinnati City Council election process, what is that about? Okay. All right. So anyway, that's a bizarre story to publish, isn't it? What could this possibly mean? I don't know. Now, I'm going to leave you with another zinger today. Something you haven't considered yet. We briefly touched on this during the show that I uploaded over the weekend on Chernobyl. But I'm going to leave you with this epiphany. A bald Bruce Willis hung out with Will Smith. So we have Will and Willis. And of course, Bruce Willis was married to bald G.I. Jane. And finally, bald G.I. Jane is G.I. Jaden Smith. Jada Pinkett, completing the circle. Now, here are some Bible verses about shaved heads in the Bible. Now, these should be, most of them or all of them. We're going to read through them. I know some people have pulled out certain verses about baldness in the Bible, but we're going to go through some of these from start to finish. There's 27 total Bible verses about shaving, but there's less about actually the head being shaved. Starts off in 2 Samuel 14:26. And as we read through some of these, let's see if there are any patterns. Let's see if anything is revealed in reading about heads being shaved bald in the Bible. Because this is now a new phenomenon, isn't it? 2 Samuel 14:26. When he cut the hair of his head, and it was at the end of every year that he cut it, for it was heavy on him. So he cut it. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels by the king's weight. And this particular one doesn't mention shaving the head, just cutting it. So we can toss that one out. Job arose. This is Job 1:20, and tore his robe and shaved his head. and he fell to the ground and worshipped. So this is an act of submission, or some people would say humiliation, because Job felt humiliated. Can you say that word? Deuteronomy 21:10-14. When you go out to battle against your enemies, and the Lord your God delivers them into your hands, and you take them away captive, and see among the captives a beautiful woman, and have a desire for her, and would take her as a wife for yourself, then you shall bring her home to your house, and she shall shave her head and trim her nails. So, this was some kind of thing that God ordered. The Most High ordered the Israelites, this is Deuteronomy, so it's the Israelites, to do. So, this is like mockery. Let's read more on this. She shall also remove the clothes of her captivity, and shall remain in your house, and mourn her father and mother a full month, and after that you may go into her, and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. It shall be, if you are not pleased with her, then you shall let her go, wherever she wishes, but you shall certainly not sell her for money. You shall not mistreat her, because you have humbled her. So this is, again, a humbling ritual here. Now, from the outside looking in, you can see how the enemy is really mocking God with these modern iterations of shaved heads of beautiful women. And you can see how if someone were to go to the Bible and read this, they might, try to judge God for having this done, right? For ordering them to do this. And that's the whole point, isn't it? Taking things out of context and challenging God and accusing God, which is, if someone were to read through this, this is exactly what they would think, unless they put this entire thing into context. Now, what is that context? Well, we've gone over it over the years, that God had a specific covenant with a specific people, didn't he? And there were things that he did with them that he didn't do with the rest of humanity that sound harsh. They sound, overboard in some instances, like animal sacrifice. But who are we to judge God and his technique with a specific law and covenant with a set of peoples? We are not to do that, are we? Now, here's another one. Jeremiah 48:36-37. Therefore my heart wails for Moab like flutes. My heart also wails like flutes for the men of Kirheers. Therefore they have lost the abundance it produced, for every head is bald, and every beard cut short. There are gashes on all hands, and sackcloth on the loins. So now we're starting to see the pattern here. This is like humiliation. It's being laid low, submission. Okay. Jeremiah, of course, being a prophet. Let's keep going with the shaved heads. Isaiah, another prophet. In that day the Lord shall shave with a razor, hired from regions beyond the Euphrates, that is the king of Assyria, the head and the hair of the legs, and it shall also remove the beard. So this sounds like some kind of judgment against these kings, being laid low again, once again being humbled. Jeremiah again, also the men of Memphis and Tahpanhes have shaved the crown of your head. Ezekiel, they will gird themselves with sackcloth, and shuddering will overwhelm them, and shame will be on all their faces, and baldness on their heads. So now we're starting to see the pattern here. Now the enemy has his version of the same thing, except the difference is that his shaving of the head is all about MK Ultra, mind control, trauma-based mind control, breaking someone down through rituals of humiliation. That's the dark side version of it, of course, because none of those people believe in the Most High. They're serving a different master, aren't they? Now, here we go to the New Testament. But every woman who has her head uncovered while praying or prophesying disgraces her head, for she is one and the same as the woman whose head is shaved. For if a woman does not cover her head, let her also have her hair cut off. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, let her cover her head. This is about women who are prophets. So, very controversial scripture for a lot of people, but that's what the Bible says. Leviticus 14, 8 through 9. The one is to be cleansed shall then wash his clothes and shave off all his hair and bathe in the water and be clean. And afterwards he may enter the camp, but he shall stay outside his tent for 7 days. It will be on the 7th day that he shall shave off all his hair. He shall shave his head and his beard and his eyebrows, even all his hair. He shall then wash his clothes and bathe his body in water and be clean. What's this about? Well, this is Leviticus, again, the Israelite covenant. And in this case, this had to do with cleanliness. It had to do with conditions of the skin and how to treat that. And in this case, treating that had to do with shaving, getting all the hair off your body that might be carrying whatever this is. Acts 21:24, back to the New Testament. Take them and purify yourself along with them and pay their expenses so that they may shave their heads. And all will know that there is nothing to the things which they have been told about you, but that you yourself also walk orderly, keeping the law. I'm not familiar with this particular passage, so I'm not going to make any assumptions about it. Ezekiel, now this is the one everybody's been talking about. Ezekiel 5, 1 through 4. As for you, son of man, take a sharp sword, take and use it as a barber's razor on your head and beard. Then take scales for weighing and divide the hair. 1/3 you shall burn in the fire at the center of the city. When the days of the siege are completed. Then you shall take 1/3 and strike it with the sword all around the city. And 1/3 you shall scatter to the wind. And I will unsheath a sword behind them. Take also a few in number from them and bind them in the edges of your robe. So these are what appear to be commands from the Most High. Ezekiel being the prophet, of course. Some kind of judgment taking place here. And probably this shaving of the head is, again, a symbol from the Most High saying, look, I'm in control here and you better humble yourself. Wow. Nazirite vow. We've all heard of the Nazirite vows here. Well, here's one about shaving the head. Nazirite shall then shave his dedicated head of hair at the doorway of the tent of the meeting, and take the dedicated hair of his head and put it on fire, which is under the sacrifice of peace offerings. So the hair is being offered as like a sacrifice here. Interesting. You shall not round off the side growth of your heads, nor harm the edges of your beard. Again, these were specific instructions for the Israelites. Had a specific covenant with God. So no bowl cuts, it sounds like. They shall not make any baldness on their heads, nor shave off the edges of their beard. So again, that's repeated. All right. Ezekiel 44:20. We're almost through these, you guys. Also, they shall not shave their heads, yet they shall not let their locks grow long. They shall only trim the hair of their heads. All right. And what else? Oh, all the days of his vow of separation, no razor shall pass over his head. He shall be holy under the days are fulfilled and separated by the Lord, himself to the Lord. He shall let the locks of his hair on his head grow long. Again, another Nazirite vow. And that's pretty much it. The rest of these are repeats. Now let me go back into the chat. Now I shared a particular story with those of you that have been on the channel for many, many years about an experience that I had as a child while I was in 8th grade. I guess I was a child. And basically, I won an art contest, and I was sent to a place called the California Summer State School for the Arts. And this was back in the 80s. And there was a very peculiar not a recommendation, but guideline that was given to us on a piece of paper. I still have the paper. I think I actually posted this years ago. And on the paper, the announcement, bulletin, whatever you want to call it, before we arrived for the summer school course or school, they said no clippers allowed. We were not allowed to cut our hair for the entire time we were there. Now, taking into consideration everything we just talked about, that's really weird, isn't it? Now, the Bible describes our hair, some kind of connection, some kind of spiritual connection. It's a crown of glory for women. And they're instructed not to cut their hair because it's the glory of her husband or something like that. You can look that up in the Bible. But there's something about it. And then, of course, Samson's hair, when it was cut, he became weakened, didn't he? There's something about the hair, more than we're being told. So now you can see the blasphemy and the mockery that Hollywood is doing with all these shaving head rituals. How many actors and actresses have we seen shave their head? It's more pronounced when you see female actresses doing it. But there's something to this. Now I want to close the show today with a discussion about the video that we uploaded on Chernobyl, poking the bear. And we talked all about, what was going on over there. And a bear came out in this film called The Chernobyl Diaries and was running out and basically invading Chernobyl. Well, I think it's all happening right now, isn't it? I believe it is. Let's go into the chat and see what you guys are up to. I just saw 7 Grains pop in. I don't know if she knew she was going to get a wrench. I let her know in the comment section, but, when she's here, she'll help out with moderating. Sometimes we get bad actors in here. I want to also explain to you that there are bad actors intentionally deployed into these kinds of chats to cause discord and division. A lot of them are artificial intelligence. You can always tell by when you click on their channel, there's absolutely no content on their channel. There's nothing at all. There's no way to track these people. They don't put their name. They just have some weird name. You also have our own government seeding these people into chats. So when you see someone get blocked, that's not censorship. That's called taking the trash out. Okay. All right. So I just want to let you know that as well. Okay, let's go into the chat here. See what's up with you guys. Well, I finally picked up my fishing license today, so I'm going to try to get out and get some fishing in. I get cabin fever. Sometimes I get so focused on this stuff. But, God doesn't want us just doing this all the time. We got to get out and do other things in life. So if I do catch some fish, maybe I'll pop them up on my Instagram or something so you guys can check them out. All right. Oh, there's diving videos at Chernobyl. Wow, that's interesting. All right. Oh, wow. Taya Smith shaved her head 2017 from Hillsong. Ritual as well. Yeah, it'd be neat to see, other channels pick that up, this whole ritual shaving of the head. Now, I know a lot of channels have talked about this in the past, Lots and lots of channels. I think Call for an Uprising did a video years ago on, this shaving of the head and the MK Ultra. But a deep dive would be in order here, wouldn't it? Get really into this and figure out what's really going on with this shaving of the heads and what it's all about. Where did their hair go? Where's the hair? It's probably being saved somewhere. It's crazy. I was watching this crazy show on Facebook. And there's this guy, and he basically goes into these storage units. And he goes to an auction. And in one particular storage unit that he went into, he got the storage unit for $250. And then he goes through the entire storage unit, box by box. And it's kind of like a unboxing on crack, right? A lot of people are into unboxings, but imagine like a treasure hunt, and you're going through, looking through things that are 20, 30, 50 years old in these storage units. And the guy's going through and he's opening up all these boxes. Have you guys seen this video? It's on Facebook Watch. Anyway, guess what he started finding? Hair. Clumps and clumps of hair. Whole envelopes full of hair cut off of someone's head. Now, I couldn't tell who this lady was who he got this storage unit from, but she seemed to be maybe Asian. It was from San Francisco, because you see a lot of things in her life that seem to point to her being of Asian descent. Now, I'm not saying that for any other reason other than to try to give us clues as to find out what that could mean. And he's going through, and every time he'd open up an envelope, he would see clumps and clumps of gray hair in it. This one wasn't Storage Wars. It was actually an independent guy. I think he's on like YouTube or something. But same concept, like Storage Wars. And there wasn't just one envelope. There were like 20 envelopes, and it was everywhere. It was almost like some kind of ritual was being done. Like, what was this lady into? And in the storage unit, he found some gold, some silver. He found, just rings and things. It wasn't a lot. He found fur coats, some other things. But yeah, it makes you wonder what some of these people are into. What do they do with this hair? Well, the Bible talked about it being burned in a fire, didn't it? But, I know people sometimes sell their hair for wigs and things. But why? But this was gray hair. So what was that about? Then there was some weird curse that she had put on somebody. This was all in this video. You guys have to find this. Well, if you find it and find the link, put it in the comment section. Or maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll find what I saw and put it in the comment section. I'll go to this guy's channel and find that particular video. She had put a curse on somebody. She had written down something and said, I wish for you to die in 1,000 blades of something. And then she had like a picture next to it and some more hair. Like she had put a curse on this guy. It was like her dad or something. So anyway, I'll find a link to that video and post it so you guys can see what that was all about. Because I couldn't even believe what I was watching. It was crazy. Anyway, let me get to work on that. And I'll put it in the pinned comment so you guys can see that video if I can find it. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We don't have a show scheduled yet, but we'll have something tomorrow. Probably more headlines and updates on everything we've been talking about. I love each and every one of you, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care and be safe.